thank you for your personal leadership and look forward to working with you to keep our deterrence and defense strong and address any challenges we might face. Again, Inga, thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you for such a warm welcome and for the open and constructive dialogue. Dear Mark, I greatly value this close and sincere dialogue. And NATO remains the cornerstone of Lithuanian security, and we have full confidence in the alliance and in the Article 5. Our security environment is challenging and tested daily through military pressure, hybrid activities, and attempts to divide allies. These challenges only reinforce our determination to remain united, resilient, and strong. Lithuania is taking its responsibilities seriously. This year we have allocated a record 5.38% of GDP to defense with the objective of achieving full defense readiness by 2030. We are preparing for the permanent deployment of a German brigade by 2027, and we continue to host United States troops, providing the highest level of host nation support. We stand ready to host additional forces as needed. At the same time, we encourage all allies to move swiftly towards allocating at least 3.5% GDP to core defense requirements. The security situation in our region remains serious. Hybrid action by the regimes in Russia and Belarus underline the need to further strengthen NATO's eastern flank. We appreciate NATO's support in addressing hybrid threats, including the recent visit of the counter-hybrid support team to Lithuania, and thank you for that very much. Incidents involving hybrid balloons launched from Belarus continue, highlighting gaps in the protection of allied airspace. We must work together to develop practical technical solutions. We also welcome NATO initiatives such as Eastern Sentry and Baltic Sentry, which have contributed to reducing hostile activities in our region. The transatlantic bond remains fundamental to our collective security. While Europe must continue to assume greater responsibility for its own defense, the United States remains an indispensable ally. A strong and united transatlantic relationship is essential for credible deterrence and defense. In these challenging geopolitical times, speaking in one voice is more important as ever. Continued support for Ukraine is equally important too. NATO must continue its assistance to help Ukraine defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Lithuania has contributed around 1 billion euros in military aid in 2025 and will maintain its strong support. We encourage all allies to contribute fairly, as a just and lasting peace in Ukraine is directly linked to security of Lithuania and of Europe as a whole. Thank you so much again for such a very welcome meeting. And as we speak before, I hope that next meeting will be in Lithuania.
I look forward to that. Thank you so much.
All right, we now have time for a few questions. Let's start with DPA.
Ansgar Hase, German press agency, DPA. Secretary General, I would like to ask what you make of the fact that Hungary, a NATO ally, is currently blocking an important loan to Ukraine and also new Russia sanctions against Russia. Have you already spoken to Viktor Orban on this issue? And if not, do you see a possibility for you to mediate in this conflict? And for sure, Prime Minister, I would also like to hear your view on this issue. Thank you.
Well, let me start by saying that Hungary has been a valued NATO ally for more than 25 years now. and it makes really important contributions to our shared security. So that's the first remark I want to make. And then, as you know, when there are discussions ongoing between allies, always my role is not to comment, but to try to be helpful wherever I can. And what that is, I cannot tell you till it has been successful.
For me, it's a very sensitive question because I came from the place, the country which feels the pressure and threats. So we understand, Lithuanians understand how it's important to invest in Ukraine winning, how it's important to stop the killing people. So I just wanted to say that European Union have to find the way to bring this kind of decision on the going way, to bring these decisions onto reality, and stopping this kind of support is not acceptable for us.
Okay, let's come to the Lithuanian public broadcaster in the third row, please.
Yeah, thank you, Lithuanian public broadcaster Milda Velikanskite. I would love to speak in Lithuania, but unfortunately we'll ask in English. I have two questions. One is for both of you about air defense. It is still an issue in Lithuania. In other also Baltic countries, are there any plans to strengthen this area in the near future? Or maybe you mentioned, Mr. Secretary, air police missions. Maybe there can be changes in that way on some level. And the next question for Mr. Mark Rutte about United States troops and presence in Europe. Many countries have their concerns, Lithuania as well. Our Prime Minister speaks about the necessity to have a plan B if United States would decide to withdraw its troops from Europe. Would you say that such plan B is necessary for Europe? And maybe you have any newest information about United States plans. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. On the first question on air defense, obviously this is an issue which we are working in, day out on this issue. And when you look at the capability targets for our allies, it's clear that this is an absolute priority. I've spoken a lot about this, that we need to basically ramp up by 400%, so 5 times what we have currently in terms of air defense. And that will, of course, take some time, but I can assure you we will get there. And we can defend ourselves today, but we want to be sure that also in 2, 4, 6 years from now, we are able to defend every inch of NATO territory. And therefore, this is such a priority. And air policing, of course, is very important. We have the air policing missions ongoing. We are constantly evaluating with all the allies where we can do more, where we can do better. At the same time, you understand this is not something I can talk about in public, but you can be assured that we are constantly primarily, of course, our military leaders, the Premier Commander and the Joint Force Commands are constantly looking into how we can make sure, together with AirCom, that we do the max here. But clearly, we need more investments on this. We have taken those decisions. This is why The Hague was so important. And this brings me to the second question. Because there is no doubt that the United States is completely committed to NATO, completely committed to Article 5, not only because there is an historical reason for the US to be involved in the defense of Europe, but because the United States very much feels, understands and realizes that for the defense of the United States, it's crucial to have a safe and secure Europe, a safe and secure Arctic and a safe and secure Atlantic. And you have heard the speech of Bridge Colby, the Senior Policy Under Secretary of State for Defense at the Pentagon, at the Department of War in Washington, speaking here during the Defense Ministers meeting. He published his text. This was absolutely clear. Appreciating the immense extra, hundreds of billions extra coming in Europe now in terms of defense spending. And Lithuania is a case in point, leading the pack now with the almost 5.4% of GDP spent on core defense. But many other countries, the Germans, doubling their defense spending in 29 compared to 21, over 150 billion euros each year spent on defense. This is what the US wanted. This is why the US was irritated with Europe, because we were not spending the same as they were spending. We are now equalizing, not only to equalize with the US because that's fair, but also because we have to defend ourselves against our adversaries, particularly, of course, our long-term threat, the Russians. This is why we are doing this. So I would really encourage Europeans to stop worrying about the United States and do as much as they can in implementing, like Lithuania is doing, and luckily most allies are doing as we speak, implementing the commitments we made in The Hague, because that makes us strong and it anchors the United States even more into NATO. And that's why I said in Munich, I believe NATO is stronger now than ever since the fall of the Berlin Wall, because we now are back on our core mission, which is defending NATO 3.0, as Brits Colby said, our territory, NATO territory, the NATO allies, but also making sure that there is the money, the men and women in uniform, the defense industrial base, the enablers, everything in place, the logistics to do that.
And just to add to the first question, that Lithuania has changed some strategic plans, and we have a high top priority air defense. So that's why now our military is preparing to strengthen air defense as more as it was before. So this year we have we will see the first steps, and we have a several-year plan. So no doubts that air defense, German brigade, and other things.
All right, we have time for one last question. Reuters, please.
Andrew Gray from Reuters. Secretary General, you mentioned the Arctic. Could you just give us an update on Arctic Sentry in terms of, what elements, what forces, what extra resources have been added since you announced the launch of Arctic Sentry, and what kind of a difference, if any, it's actually making? Perhaps you'd like to respond to criticism that this is, in a sense, a rebadging exercise, to placate President Trump, given his desire to acquire Greenland. And for the Prime Minister, also on Arctic Sentry, do you have any concerns that activities like that divert away or place a strain on resources intended for the Baltic, such as Baltic Sentry? And would you also consider contributing more to Arctic Sentry? Thank you.
Again, as I said before, this is substantial, Arctic Sentry. And of course, NATO has to defend every inch of NATO territory, 360 degrees. And I think what President Trump did, this wake-up call to the whole of NATO since Trump 45, but repeating this under Trump 47, since he came back in the US presidency in January last year, and making that case that the Russians and the Chinese are more and more active in the Arctic. This is not only Greenland, this is the whole Arctic. This is why NATO is so important. And by the way, when I say NATO is stronger than ever, it is also because it is more and more a NATO which is European-led. And also when it comes to Arctic Sentry, you see that the Europeans are doing more and more necessary, not only for Baltic Sentry, Eastern Sentry, and the whole of NATO, but also when it comes to Arctic Sentry. A couple of facts. Arctic Sentry is led, as you know, by Joint Force Command Norfolk. It's our newest Joint Force Command, and since December, the area of responsibility of Norfolk now encompasses the North Atlantic, including the Arctic. That means also Denmark, it also means Finland and Sweden. We are taking as NATO a one Arctic approach. This is one of the big benefits of Arctic Sentry, that we now have a one Arctic approach, where allies synchronize activities, enhance and expand regular presence throughout the region. So it is bringing together what we already have and adding on top, based on a gap assessment, what we need to do more. And this is why Arctic Sentry is not only leveraging what we have, but also making sure that based on a gap analysis, we do more based on that gap analysis in terms of the investments we have to make. Increasing, therefore, and also modernizing our capabilities, and therefore basically enhancing our collective security of the entire alliance. When you look at the allies participating, we have the United States, the US Marines, we have the Royal Marines from the United Kingdom, we have the Dutch, and other nations for exercise cold response. In Norway, we see the Spanish, the French and the German forces. They participate through the standing NATO Maritime Group 1, conducting air defense and maritime security drills as part of exercise Dynamic Mariner. And these and other activities are complemented by NATO's, of course, ongoing air policing efforts in Iceland, as well as the Danish Joint Arctic Command in Greenland. Of course, I will never go into specific numbers because we don't want to make the Russians or anyone more knowledgeable of what we are doing, but I can assure you it is bringing together what we have. Therefore, as a one NATO approach, approaching now the Arctic as one, which was not possible because in the past it was scattered among many NATO allies, but not a one NATO approach. That's one, and based on this, we can do now the proper gap analysis, and based on that, see where we need to do more. So it is, I would really counter the idea that it's just what we did already. It is much, much more.
It is very difficult to add something more, but I would say that, you have a very strong, big family as NATO, and it is smart view when you can see the very sensitive points which you have to strengthen in different ways. So that's why when we speak about Baltic countries, we say that we are in a specific area. Today we have threats from Russia and Belarus. So today, this is a plan for today. Tomorrow it can be threats from other side. So that's why today we are speaking about the strengthening of this area. So I am so happy that we are in a family which can adapt very quickly and which can react very, very quickly. This is, I think, is very important.
All right, that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much for joining us and have a good afternoon.
Thank you so much.
We did it.
Absolutely.